Hi guys, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm back at it again with another episode, and this time around we are going to talk about friendship and family. Generally, it's like we are talking about relationships, and especially for people who are in recovery. And so, uh, I'll start on opening the conversation or whatever. And one thing that we all have to understand is that when we are talking about relationships, discussing relationships, and especially for people who are in recovery, is often a very painful topic, but also it's a very important topic to discuss and talk about, for it really helps in healing. And also, like we always say, you will never live alone. You'll always need people to support you, and support is a very crucial, or it's a very important thing for people who are in recovery. Some of these relationships are the reason we became addicts in the first place, but we also need to take responsibility of our actions, or generally the things that we did that made us find ourselves into addiction. I'll start off with a question like most of the times, like I always do. So I would tell you to just name one word that describes how addiction affected your relationship. That is for people who are into addiction. Yeah. So addiction does not happen in isolation. It affects everyone around us. We'll have to understand that. And let's start off with how addiction impacts the family around us. We realize that when we are in addiction, we will have broken trust from our families. We'll also experience emotional exhaustion. Like the family, they experience emotional exhaustion. They also experience fear, anger, resentment. It can be two ways, and you find that in some cases you will find that there are role reversals. Like, for example, you might find that if a parent is into addiction, the child now becomes the parent. They are supposed to parent the parent. It also brings about enabling behaviors. Like, you'll find someone who is in. Sorry about that, guys. People who are in addiction, they find themselves, you'll like, we excuse most of their behaviors, and now it becomes enabling because we're used to how they behave or how they do things. I'll give an example of how addiction affects a family. Like, for example, a mother keeps lying to relatives to cover for her son's addiction, and at this point she's thinking that she's helping the child, but actually she's just actually protecting the addiction. And at this point, when the relatives or the family knows that the person into the addiction, the trust that was there between the family members or the relatives with the mother, at some point it will be, you know, I know you understand what I mean. We can go to how addiction impacts friendship. And at this point, in most cases, when someone is into addiction, they are probably going to lose non-using friends, people who are not using, because it's their goals are not aligned. So you might lose the people who are so important in your life just because you are different, you know. But no, it's not that you're different just because that you are into drinking or taking miraa or just taking bang, and for them they are not into that. Also, you will find that friendships are based on substances. Yeah, and that you'll just make friends with people who are using like you are. There will also be manipulation and dishonesty. You'll find that in some cases, for people who are not using and their friends are using, or the people that they used to know are using, they'll be so manipulative or even dishonest with them. Also, there'll be isolation. You find that someone you used to be so close with, or a friend who was always there, mingling and as socializing, is no, they do not want to be associated with you anymore, and they just want to be on their own. Um, you can compare between old friends and new friends, and this is for people by oh, I'm talking about people who have gone through healing or who are in recovery, and we're just trying to compare the friends that they had while they were still using and the friends that they will have after they've recovered. And in most cases, you realize that most of the old friends may have been people who were using, and you will realize that they are the people who have, who will always who will always trigger something in you when you are near them, or you will also realize that they are very unsupportive for your recovery. Yeah, so mainly those are the 3 points that I can remember. But the new friends now that you make when you are in recovery, you realize that most of these friends are not honest. They will always be honest with you. They hold you accountable. They will also be very supportive, and they are growth oriented. We can look at healthy friendship qualities. In recovery, you realize that those friendships they are mainly guided by respect. There is always honesty. There is clear boundaries. There is also mutual support, and there is no pressure to use. But for unhealthy friendship, the red flags are people who will always encourage relapse. They guilt trip, they disrespect boundaries, and they mock recovery. Mm, we can talk about family in recovery, and in this family in recovery, there are 3 main points that we look at. There is the pain, there is the hope, and there is the healing. Uh, Recovery does not automatically fix family relationships. That is something that you should always understand, and especially for the people who are in recovery, that a recovery does not automatically fix family relationships, but it creates the opportunity. It's like you're being given a second chance. Um, some of the experiences or questions you might face from your friends or family and the people who are in your family, um, there are common dynamics in the family, and at this point I feel like it is important to let someone who is in addiction or who is in recovery know that there are dynamics that changed when we were still in addict, and you realize that there will be anger because you ruined everything. There will also be fear from the people from the family because they are wondering what if you relapse. There will be control because they just want to help manage your life. They feel like you cannot be able to control yourself. And then for some there will be distance. Like it's like I don't trust you like I used to do before. But it's always important to know that you can always rebuild that trust, but it also have some takes, which are sorry guys, excuse me. Which are I have 4 points on these. To be able to rebuild the trust, you have to know that it will take some time to rebuild it, because if, for example, someone had stopped trusting you, you ought to give them time, you know. And as you give them the time, you have to be consistent, you know. That is the second point now in building the trust. When you are consistent on your recovery, as you are consistent, there are actions that you take to show that you're doing things differently from how you used to do them when you are still addicted. And then you also have to be patient. You ought to have patience with with the family now, or the relatives. I've said there are four things. There is time. You have to give them time. Then you have to be consistent in what you're doing. You also have to show action, because you can just speak and not do anything. So remember that actions speak louder than words. And then there is patience for the people that you want the trust to have trust in you. Showing up sober like for example, I'll give an example. Showing up sober every day for 6 months speaks louder than one apology. And that is why we are talking about the action bit, where you are showing up sober, and then there is the consistency of showing up for the 6 months. Yeah, there is also patience in between, because you are not hurrying the process and the time as well. You have taken your 6 months to show that you are a different person. We can go to acceptance. Acceptance is when people now in the family are ready to trust you, or they are just ready to accept you back. You need to have and for someone who is in recovery, they ought to have an open mind and know that in as much as you want the relationship to go back to what it once was, some family members and may not be ready to trust you yet. So that is why we are saying you just have to give them time and show them the consistency now and the action to show them that you are a different person, and you are ready to face life differently from how it was when you were still in addiction. Also, another point is that remember that healing is not instant. It is a process, so you ought to embrace it. Recovery, I always say that recovery is a journey that doesn't have a destination. So it is like a process. It is a process that you ought to give it your all for you to be able to recover fully. And thirdly, recovery is for you and it's not for pleasing others. So at this point, you ought to just focus on yourself more. I'm not saying that you forget about everyone else, but it's like you are the price here, and for that to work, you ought to just concentrate on yourself more. Many people say that for you to be able to love someone else, you have to love yourself first. And it's the same with acceptance. When you're still in recovery, you ought to know that you are doing it for yourself and not for others. When you do it for yourself, you can get better yields. But when you're doing it for someone else, at some point you'll backslide and you'll go back to relapse. We can talk about boundaries, and this is protecting your recovery. What do I mean when I talk about boundaries? Boundaries are limits we set to protect our sobriety, to protect our mental health, and to protect our growth. Why do boundaries matter? You are in recovery. Boundaries help you in preventing relapse. What do I mean? For example, for people, when you set boundaries, you are able to cut off the people who can trigger you going back to the addiction or to taking whatever substance that you're using. And also when you have those boundaries, you are able to keep yourself away from the things that would have led you to going back to taking the drugs. Another point is that it reduces resentment. It also promotes respect, and also it builds healthy relationships. You are able to build more healthy relationships because at this point you're in control of your life and you are not under any influence. I'll give a few examples. You can attend events where alcohol, you can't attend events where alcohol is present because you might be tempted to take just a sip or just a drink, and that is where it will just take you back to where you are coming from. Also, you can keep off from discussing your recovery when you're angry, and also you can take some time off for yourself before you start rebuilding the relationships that you once had. Also, it is important to practice setting boundaries in a respectful way. What do I mean? A friend might invite you to a party where substance will be present. So you ought to know how to handle that, but now in a respectful way. Yeah. We can talk about forgiveness, guilt, and making amends. Guilt can motivate change, but shame keeps us stuck. When you're guilty, you can be motivated to change, but when you are feeling shame, then it's like you are stuck and you can't move. So forgiveness starts with self-forgiveness. When you're feeling guilty and you want to change, you will want to seek forgiveness. Okay, that dog. I'm so sorry, guys. My walls are quite thin. That is why you can simply hear what is happening out there. Really, I'm sorry, but I don't have another choice. I just have to do this. I hope it keeps quiet soon because sorry. As I was saying, guilt can motivate change, and for you to want change, you might want to seek forgiveness. But you can't go asking for forgiveness if you've not forgiven yourself first. So you have to forgive yourself, then go seek forgiveness from someone else. Let's talk about healthy amends and what they are all about. At this point, when you're talking about healthy amends, God, come on. When you are talking about healthy amends, they include acknowledging the harm that you might have done when we were still in addiction, taking responsibility, also showing changed behavior, and respecting the other person's response. You might seek forgiveness, but the other person might not be in a position or willing to forgive you yet. So you ought to respect what other people's response are. We can go to a different segment, which is building a supportive system. Like I had said earlier, recovery is not a solo journey. You will need support, and this support can include family members. It can also include sponsors. It might include peers who are in recovery as you. It might also include counselors, therapists, and the like. And lastly, it might include faith or community leaders. Those are some of some of the people who are willing to support you in your recovery, or whom you might need to ask for help from. And as I close on my talk today, there are a few points. I'll just put them as they are. And remember that relationships can heal, but recovery comes first. Not everyone will stay, and that's okay. Also, healthy connections support long-term sobriety. Healthy connections support long-term sobriety. And lastly, you are allowed to choose peace over any relationship. Thank you for listening, and looking forward to our next episode. I am very, very sorry for the noise on the background, but it gets better with time. I hope soon to give peaceful do I say episodes without all the noise. So thank you for watching, thank you for commenting, thank you for engaging with my videos. See you soon. Bye bye.